Relax. This is a bachelor pad. There's supposed to be shoes laying around the crib.
Oh, it is, bullet head. But with the miracle of Maconomics, you will have the Mac today and the honey tonight.
From the Steve Harvey Show to Moesha and the Cosby Show, a young talent from New York City was rising fast, with the potential to take his career as far as he dreamed. That star was Merlin Santana, hailing from the Upper West Side, whose name was quickly gaining recognition as his talents began to shine brightly. But then, in a tragic turn that no one saw coming, Merlin's life was abruptly cut short in a revenge plot he had no part in. This is the story of the brief, promising life and heartbreaking end of Merlin Santana. Merlin Santana was born on March 14, 1976, in New York City to his mother, Leah Santana, who had emigrated from the Dominican Republic. Merlin's very arrival into the world was nothing short of miraculous, as Leah faced serious complications during pregnancy, with doctors giving him only a 50-50 chance of survival. This news was heart-wrenching for Leah, who could do little but hope and pray her child would make it through. But Merlin defied those odds, arriving strong and healthy, a testament to his resilience from day one. Leah chose the name Merlin to honor her son's almost magical triumph over his early obstacles. Inspired by the legendary wizard from Arthurian lore, she saw her child as a little miracle, a fighter who seemed to possess a touch of magic himself. Throughout his life, Merlin embraced this unique name, often introducing himself with pride. From a young age, Merlin's personality was magnetic. He was known as a bright, funny, and charismatic child, quick with a joke and always ready to make people laugh. His joyful nature made him stand out, and it wasn't long before others took notice. For those with an eye for talent, Merlin had that unmistakable it factor that set him apart from other kids, a spark that hinted at the bright future ahead of him. At just 3 years old, Merlin Santana's life took an unexpected turn. While out one day with his mother, Leah, the pair happened to cross paths with a talent scout. Sensing Merlin's natural charisma and charm, the scout struck up a conversation, and it didn't take long for him to see that Merlin had something special. He encouraged Leah to consider getting her son into the entertainment industry, suggesting that Merlin might just have the spark for the screen. Eager to explore this new possibility, Leah took the scout's advice and brought Merlin to an upcoming audition for a fast food commercial. Merlin landed the role, and that first taste of performing ignited a love for acting that would guide him for years to come. The fast-paced world of show business was a perfect fit for Merlin's lively personality and boundless energy, and it wasn't long before his career gained momentum. From that one commercial, a door had opened, and Merlin was soon on the path to stardom. Merlin had an advantage that set him apart. He was bilingual, fluent in both English and Spanish, which expanded his opportunities even further. As casting calls rolled in, Merlin quickly found his footing, impressing everyone he worked with and earning roles that would keep his career moving forward. Growing up on the Upper West Side of New York City, Merlin was familiar with the neighborhood's complex reality. In the 80s and 90s, the area was often a hub of gang activity, drug use, and other challenges that could easily pull young people off track. But for Merlin, acting was more than just a career. It was a lifeline. Attending Ascension School on 108th Street, Merlin made a strong circle of friends and became known for his humor and big personality. Show business gave him a focus and an escape from the risks that his neighborhood sometimes posed. Growing up on the Upper West Side in the 90s came with its own set of challenges, especially for families like Merlin Santana's. For anyone familiar with the area, the neighborhood was a far cry from the gentrified calm of today. Drug wars between rival crews were common, leading to neighborhood curfews enforced by the harsh reality of violence outside. The stakes in these clashes revolved around money, power, and respect, leaving many young people at risk of being swept up in the surrounding turbulence. Merlin's mother, Leah, had her work cut out for her, but she was determined to give her son a different path. She saw Merlin's unique gift and believed he could succeed without becoming another statistic. In 1990, Merlin's budding career would reach a pivotal moment when he was cast in a play called Hey, Little Walter. While he might not have realized it at the time, this role would change everything. One evening, as Merlin took the stage, an influential audience member was seated in the crowd, Bill Cosby. Impressed by Merlin's performance and charisma, Cosby took note. He was so taken with Merlin's talent that he arranged for a new character to be added to The Cosby Show, specifically for him. Soon after, Merlin stepped into the role of Stanley, Rudy Huxtable's witty and lovable boyfriend. His charm and comedic timing quickly made him a fan favorite, and his performance brought him national recognition. This role on one of the most popular TV shows of the time launched his career, putting him on a path that showed no signs of slowing down. As The Cosby Show came to an end, Merlin didn't have to wait long before his next opportunity arose. He was cast in another sitcom, Getting By, alongside Dionne Richmond, a fellow child star and New York native from Harlem. The two had already built a friendship during their time on The Cosby Show, and their on-screen chemistry made the transition seamless. Getting By aired from March 1993 to June 1994 and gave Merlin another platform to showcase his talent. Even though the show was eventually canceled, Merlin's career continued to rise. At just 19, Merlin Santana took a bold step, leaving his hometown of New York City for the sunny streets of Los Angeles. Moving across the country was a big leap, but Merlin was ready for it. He settled in North Hollywood, in the quieter San Fernando Valley, eager to focus on his craft without the distractions that often came with fame. Living independently brought excitement and a sense of accomplishment, and Merlin made sure to stay connected with his roots, frequently reaching out to family and friends back home. Life in L.A. quickly proved promising for Merlin's career. In 1996, he landed a defining role as Romeo Santana on The Steve Harvey Show, a character that would become one of his most beloved and recognizable. As Romeo, Merlin brought charm and humor to the show, winning fans nationwide and cementing his place as a rising star. While many young actors in his position were struggling with the temptations of Hollywood, Merlin remained level-headed. He avoided the pitfalls of drugs and other distractions that claimed many of his peers, choosing instead to channel his energy into his work. Alongside acting, Merlin began exploring his other creative passion, music. Known for his smooth style and talent, he started making moves in the hip-hop world as a rapper. He had the charisma, image, and growing popularity that made a music career a natural next step. Despite being fully committed to acting, Merlin took his music pursuits just as seriously, dedicating himself to developing his sound and skill. It's even rumored that he recorded a significant amount of material that never got released, suggesting he was well on his way to adding musician to his list of achievements. While starring as Romeo Santana on The Steve Harvey Show, Merlin Santana's talent and charisma truly shone. Playing Romeo, a charming ladies' man at Booker T. Washington High School on Chicago's West Side, Merlin brought depth to a character who was as smooth-talking as he was likable. Though the show was a sitcom, Merlin demonstrated his range, nailing both comedic timing and the occasional more serious scenes, proving to audiences that he was a versatile actor. His character's cool, confident personality began to mirror Merlin's real-life appeal, and his fan base grew quickly as he became a recognized face on the streets. He was living the dream. Years of hard work were finally paying off, and he was reaching new heights of fame. As Merlin's popularity surged, he started to expand his career with roles in major films, working alongside legends like Eddie Murphy and Robert De Niro. But despite his success, Merlin never lost his connection to his roots. He often returned to his old neighborhood around 107th and Manhattan Avenue, where he'd ride his motorcycle through the familiar streets and spend time with childhood friends. Fame didn't change him. Merlin was as down-to-earth as ever, remaining loyal to the people and places that shaped him. Beyond the Steve Harvey Show, Merlin made memorable appearances on popular TV shows like Moesha, Sister, Hangin' with Mr. Cooper, and Under One Roof, each role further solidifying his place in Hollywood. The future looked limitless for Merlin. His talent, ambition, and grounded personality made him a rising star, and his accolades were beginning to reflect that. He was nominated for awards from the NAACP Image Awards and the ALMA Awards, which honor Latinos in entertainment. But as Merlin's star continued to rise, he also had to navigate the challenges of fame. As a young, successful man from a tough neighborhood, Merlin had to be cautious about the people he let into his life. He was surrounded by admirers, but it was hard to know who had his best interests at heart. Even with this constant risk, Merlin stayed focused, committed to reaching his dreams and representing his community with pride. However, on the evening of Friday, November 8, 2002, Merlin Santana's life took a tragic turn that no one could have anticipated. That night, the young star was in the Crenshaw district of Los Angeles, recording music with his close friend and fellow actor Brandon Quentin Adams. Known for roles in cult favorites like The People Under the Stairs and The Sandlot, Brandon had also portrayed a young Michael Jackson in the mini version of Bad and appeared in beloved shows like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Moesha, and Sister. The two friends shared a love for both acting and music, and this session was a chance for Merlin to explore his musical side, something he was increasingly passionate about. Merlin had originally planned to be back home in New York that week, eager to reconnect with family and friends. However, a last-minute opportunity arose, a promising audition for a new TV show in Los Angeles. Excited about the potential role, Merlin decided to stay in LA a bit longer, postponing his New York trip. It was a change in plans that, while not unusual for a busy actor, would have unforeseen consequences. Around midnight that evening, Merlin reached out to a woman he knew as Mercedes. He and Brandon had met her sometime earlier at a Chinese restaurant in Los Angeles, where she had recognized Merlin from his role on The Steve Harvey Show. Flattered by the attention and glad to be connecting with fans, Merlin had stayed in touch with her, enjoying the recognition as his career continued to rise. What began as a casual night with friends soon took a dark turn. According to sources, Merlin and Mercedes had shared a perfectly consensual night together, and everything had seemed normal. Later, Merlin called Mercedes and invited her to hang out with him and some friends. She agreed, but when she arrived, her behavior struck both Merlin and his friend Brandon as odd. Mercedes seemed anxious and restless, pacing around the house and appearing nervous. Brandon noticed her unusual demeanor right away, sensing something was off. After a short while, Mercedes made a brief phone call and then abruptly announced she had to leave. Brandon watched as she left, noticing her heading toward a large vehicle parked outside, the same one that had dropped her off earlier. Inside were two men who seemed to be waiting for her. After Mercedes drove off, an unsettling feeling lingered. Brandon had a strong suspicion that something was wrong, that perhaps Mercedes had only been there to scope out the place. Feeling uneasy, he suggested to Merlin that they should leave too, just to be safe. They headed to their vehicle and got in, with Brandon in the driver's seat and Merlin in the passenger seat. But as they prepared to drive away, Brandon's instincts were chillingly confirmed. Looking into his side mirror, Brandon noticed a red laser aimed toward their car. Alarmed, he focused closer and spotted two men rushing toward them, both carrying guns. He shouted at Merlin to duck and immediately pressed on the gas, trying to speed away. But before they could get clear, gunfire erupted. The scene turned chaotic within seconds, with bullets raining down on the car. One of the bullets entered through the car's trunk, traveling with devastating precision. It passed through the passenger seat, hitting Merlin in the back of the head. The shot was fatal, killing Merlin instantly and leaving Brandon in shock and horror as he tried to escape the deadly ambush. Brandon's heart raced as he looked over to see Merlin slumped forward. lifeless. Desperate, he yelled Merlin's name, hoping his friend might respond, that maybe the injury wasn't as dire as it seemed. But Merlin remained silent, unresponsive, blood pouring from his head. Reality sank in. This was more serious than Brandon could have imagined. Despite his shock, Brandon managed to wave down a patrol car passing by. He frantically told the officers what had happened, but there was nothing they could do. Merlin was already gone. In the midst of his grief and shock, Brandon was left grappling with one haunting question. Why had this happened? As police and EMS arrived to investigate, they examined Merlin's phone to determine who he had last spoken to. Brandon explained Merlin's call to Mercedes and her strange behavior that night, giving authorities their first lead. The next morning, following the investigators' request, Brandon called Monique and asked if they could meet up. They agreed to meet at a Jack in the Box, where Brandon pointed her out to the investigators. Detectives immediately took Monique in for questioning. During the interview, she was evasive, lying about her name, age, and address. When asked about the events from the previous night, her story kept shifting, but eventually she decided to cooperate. Once Mercedes, whose real name was Monique King, was brought in for questioning, the shocking truth began to unravel. It turned out that after a brief encounter with Merlin, Monique had developed an intense attachment. She wanted more than a casual connection, yet Merlin, busy with his career and frequently traveling, wasn't looking for anything serious. Deeply angered by his lack of commitment, Monique returned to two men, 21-year-old Damian Andre Gates, who some say was her boyfriend, and 25-year-old Brandon Douglas Bynes. In a disturbing twist, she fed them a fabricated story, claiming that Merlin had forced himself on her, violating her trust and consent. Driven by Monique's fabrication, the two men sought violent revenge on Merlin Santana, believing they were avenging an assault that never happened. Tragically, it later came to light that Monique, who was underage, had lied not only about Merlin's supposed assault, but also about her age. This entire deadly setup, one that resulted in the death of a promising young man, originated from the mind of a young girl who couldn't bear the sting of rejection. When first questioned by authorities, Monique maintained her innocence, insisting she'd done nothing wrong. But one officer, recognizing her defiance, put things into perspective. She could either be a witness or a suspect. Hours into the interrogation, faced with her choices, Monique finally confessed, admitting that she had concocted the lie that led Damian Gates and Brandon Douglas Bynes to kill Merlin. Detectives confiscated her phone and went through her call logs. They found the calls she'd made to Merlin, but what stood out were a series of calls she made just minutes after the shooting, at 1:58 a.m., 1:59 a.m., 2:02 a.m., and 2:03 a.m. Those calls were made to a number saved under the name Kid. It didn't take long for investigators to figure out that Kid was actually 20-year-old Damian Andre Gates. A search warrant was issued for his home on November 21st, where investigators seized a phone that matched the number from Monique's call log. They also found a black New York Yankees hat and a .30 caliber bullet under his bed. To make matters worse, Damian's aunt had rented a gray Dodge Durango, which was returned just hours after the shooting. With the new evidence in hand, Damian and the second suspect, 23-year-old Brandon Douglas Bynes, nicknamed Bizai, were arrested. During questioning, Damian denied knowing Monique or anyone else involved in the incident, but he did admit to driving the Durango that night. Initially, he denied any involvement in the shooting, but after further interrogation, he confessed to having fired the pistol. However, both men seemed to want to avoid taking full responsibility for the fatal shot. It was clear that the rifle was the actual murder weapon, and neither of them wanted to claim it. But during Monique's interview, she confirmed that Damian had the rifle and Bizai was the one with the pistol. Shakita explained that she and Monique were both runaways at the time and had only met about a week or two before the murder. On the night of the shooting, around 8 p.m., Shakita met up with Beezy and Daman for the first time. The group bought some liquor and pills, then found a secluded spot to park and hang out. While they were parked, Daman received a call from Monique. She told him someone was trying to take advantage of her. According to Monique, when she arrived at Gilani's house, the man told her to sit on the floor, strip down, and they had a video camera set up. Daman didn't believe her at first. He and Beezy got out of the car and walked to the corner to talk. About 10 minutes later, they came back to the vehicle and told Monique that they were going to take care of things. The group then drove to Daman's house, where Beezy and Daman went inside and came back out with a duffel bag. Inside, they had a rifle and a pistol. They got back in the car and drove about 15 minutes to Gilani's house. Daman started loading the rifle, while Beezy grabbed the pistol. Their initial plan was to shoot up the house. Soon after, Monique came out of the house and got into the vehicle. A little while later, Merlin and Brandon walked out of the house and got into the Kia. Daman and Beezy rushed toward them, opening fire. There were about 6 or 7 shots fired. Monique quickly drove over to pick them up, and the group fled the scene. These men, acting on a young girl's dangerous deceit, threw their lives away in pursuit of vengeance for a falsehood. Merlin Santana's life, filled with talent, ambition, and a future that seemed boundless, was cut short because Monique couldn't handle Merlin's disinterest. Damian Gates, who fired the fatal shot, was sentenced to 70 years to life, a penalty befitting the senseless crime. Brandon Douglas Bynes received a 23-year sentence for his role. As for Monique King, though tried as an adult, her youth meant she was sentenced to the California Youth Authority. She would ultimately be released at 25, free to continue her life, a life Merlin never got to finish. Merlin Santana was laid to rest at St. Raymond's Cemetery in the Bronx. The young actor left behind a grieving family, friends, and countless fans who still remember him with admiration. In his short life, he became a powerful symbol of perseverance, showing that dreams can be pursued relentlessly regardless of humble beginnings. Merlin's journey from the neighborhood streets to a rising Hollywood star served as inspiration for so many, proving that with determination, one could overcome barriers and seize new possibilities. His story remains a bittersweet reminder of what could have been, a life of promise and artistry forever lost. Rest in peace, Merlin Santana. He is missed deeply by those who knew and loved him, and by all of us who saw his immense potential and who remember him not just as a character on a screen, but as a true talent taken far too soon. Merlin Santana's legacy continues to live on through his family, friends, fans, and the many projects he was a part of, with only a small part of his story captured in this video. His brother, Ish, runs a YouTube channel with his girlfriend called Annie and Ish, where he often shares fond memories of Merlin. In a heartfelt tribute, Ish also named his son Merlin, honoring his late brother. In 2018, Merlin's daughter, Melinda, graduated from New York University with a nursing degree. During the ceremony, she wore a cap with a touching message to her father. "Dad, no worries. I know you're proud of me in heaven." Merlin's story has become a heartbreaking reminder of how a lie can change everything, costing the life of a talented young man and leaving behind a legacy of love, pride, and remembrance.